taking 30 minutes. Let's cruise around and come back.
That newly released body cam video shows two St. Louis police officers not helping a dying man in his last moments. He was still breathing with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The now former officers didn't want to help because their workday was almost over. We'll get to the latest on where these now former officers are in a moment, but I want to begin by bringing you back to the day this happened, September 10th, 2023. It started when a call went out about a man who shot himself in the head in a park. The first two officers who arrived on scene are Austin Frazier and Ty Warren. Here's what Warren's body camera captured as they entered the park. I'm not going to show you the body, but you can hear Warren recognize the person is still breathing.
No, he ain't dead.
You hear in the beginning of that video, Frazier asks if he's rolling. We only have Warren's body camera. Frazier's was not rolling. We don't know why. But the two knew they were on body camera, which makes what they say next even more shocking as they stand over a man still breathing in need of life-saving help.
That's all brain. Yeah. He shoot himself in the head? I don't know. Shit, we better take this man. We ain't taking 30 minutes. Let's cruise around and come back.
Yeah, you heard that right. Let's cruise around and come back. The video continues, and you can hear the two of them laughing as they walk away. It's hard to hear, but Frazier jokes to Warren about how they'll act surprised when the other officers find the man they left. And it's important to note, when they found this person, at no point did they radio for help to other officers or for EMS to arrive. We also have a second clip from Warren's body cam of when they come back as other officers arrive. Watch this.
Head 522.
EMS respond for one subject. Not conscious of breathing. Barely. The gunshot wound to his
Side of his head.
It looks like the side of his head.
That's Officer Warren and Officer Frazier standing there as another officer calls in that they found this man who was barely breathing, with no mention that they had already been to the scene. Remember, this was a call that went out to multiple officers who were all looking for this person in the park. We have the body camera video from their point of view, and I want to make it clear and show you that there were officers who arrived after Frazier and Warren who did what you would expect a police officer to do. Here's the body camera from another officer, and you can hear that there's at least one officer who is trying to save this man.
He's still breathing.
All right, Brian. Yeah, you could try, Brian, but
I know there's nothing we could do, but he's still breathing.
You got brain matter on the opposite side, buddy. And be careful for a gun, bud.
I know.
I'm gonna put gloves on. I'm gonna try to help you out.
I can't just stand by.
I understand, bud.
Excuse me, that'll be the park rangers.
It's clear. Let
Possibly a hole in the
me try
tree.
to get a hold of them on districts 1 and 2. Stand by.
But we also don't want to, if this is
It's a homicide, I don't.
yeah.
He's still breathing.
Here, I'm gonna bring my car up and just block off. What do you think? In here?
Yeah.
Also, you may have noticed in the beginning of this body camera that you can see Warren and Frazier appear to come back to the scene and are there as other officers arrive. They give little information, and then they aren't seen again in the footage that we watched. And apparently, according to his fellow officers, Warren was known to disappear.
Warren's pretty good at just dipping randomly, which I think he already did.
Yeah.
Would you make sure you got tried direct EMS in here? You know what's f***ed up? Warren and Frazier just left.
Huh?
Warren and Frazier just left.
Why?
I don't know.
Now, in the body cam, it's unclear if this officer knew that Warren and Frazier had already been at the scene before anyone else, because Warren and Frazier never called it in. It's also unclear, had they rendered aid, if that man who police say had shot himself would have survived. The man who died was identified as Uraylin Rodriguez Rivera. I want to thank Upside for sponsoring this body cam. Upside is a free app that gets you real cash back for everyday essentials like groceries and gas. Now, I'm new to law and crime. All my new coworkers were telling me to download Upside and give it a try. So I did. I went to a gas station about 4 minutes from my house, downloaded the app. I got 52 cents back per gallon. That was a total of $7 back, filling up my tank. That money will appear in my Upside app, and then I can transfer it to my bank account. It's an app that really works. Once you have the Upside app, you can claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using your debit or credit card and follow the steps on the app and get paid. Now, as you just saw me do, you can use Upside at gas stations like Shell, Exxon, Mobil, 7-Eleven, and that's just naming a few. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description or scan this QR code and use our promo code BODYCAM. That will get you an extra 25 cents back on every gallon in your first tank of gas. Joining us now is retired police commander Mike King. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. You watched this body cam video and what these two officers did. What stands out to you?
You know, Chris, I number one, I'm just so incredibly disappointed, and I find myself vacillating back and forth between anger over what the officers did and, or more importantly, what the officers failed to do in this particular case, and the concerns that I often have for the mental health of police officers who see so much tragedy that they can become hardened to a state that something like this, they very well may have assessed from the onset that they weren't going to do anything because they wanted to get on with their life or go goofing off or you know head to the bowling alley. Who knows? But the thing that's so troubling is a police officer knows, and you basically plan for the fact that at the end of the day, you're probably going to end up picking up some overtime hours as a result of calls, because it isn't a 9-to-5 job where you can just hope that everything's completed in a specific set of time. As the emergencies unfold, your responsibility unfolds, and they failed in their responsibility.
Typically, if they had done the right thing, what would that have looked like had they done that when they come across this person who may not have survived if they were able to get to an EMS or a hospital, but still coming across someone who is in that situation?
Well, number one, common decency says the first thing they should have done is render aid to this young man, and they should have done everything they could to protect his life, perhaps sustain it, or at least stabilize him until professional medical help could arrive at the scene. And medical help got there pretty quick later when they returned to the scene or when other officers found him. But that's the most important thing. I mean, it says on the side of police cars to protect and serve for a reason. And their responsibility is to do that very thing. It's not to let your own biases or your own frustrations or the fact that you're kind of tired step in the way. And that's what really sets apart real police officers, those who go out and get in the trenches every single day and they stick it out, whether they like the job assignment they have at that particular moment or they don't. And I'll tell you what, these scenes can be so gruesome and so cause such a shock value to even seasoned officers that when you get there, you have to have the training that causes you to just kick into gear and go to work. And go to work is providing life-saving measures of stabilization until the medical teams can arrive. And frankly, they just miserably failed in that. And to me, it's so disappointing that, like in an accident scene, there's a law that you have to stop and render aid. What kind of human decency says you don't render aid in that kind of case? It's just so disappointing.
It really is. And we made sure in the intro before our conversation to mention the other officers' body cams that have been released. You do see the officers who come after Frazier and Warren arrive and then leave, and they do render aid, and they do what you would expect a police officer to do in that situation. In recent years, there's been a lot of talk about how difficult it is to recruit people to be police officers because of the hours, because of what you see, because of the challenges you face. I guess when you see these two officers, the way they handled that situation, what concerns does that raise about the quality of officer? The fact that you have these two people that would do this, who are wearing the uniform and are out on the streets of St. Louis.
Well, I find myself in two camps. One is the idealistic camp that says, get over it. Your job is to go out and to protect and serve. And that means that you work overtime. That means you work crummy shifts. That means you deal with families that are in crises, that you go to scenes that are ugly. You smell things you never want to have someone you love smell. You see things you'd never want someone you love to see. But that's your job, and you go in and you do it. And so this idealistic side of me says, this is a cause of the erosion of public trust that we see. From an ethical standpoint, to me, it's an absolute violation of the oath of office that you take as a police officer. We kind of saw when these police officers arrived on the scene that we're doing it right, that it jeopardizes team integrity. Good cops don't like bad cops. And I'm so grateful that there's some accountability there. But to go to your real core question, Chris, I think the thing that really stands out to me too is the fact that we have to do a better job of hiring people who are capable of handling the job, who are empathetic enough that they understand pain and suffering, yet they're hardened enough that they can go in and look at a crime scene like that and do their job. And I'll tell you, those are difficult things to do, but you still have to do it. And I remember as a young patrol officer, one of my sergeants saying to me, hey, if you don't do it, there's nobody left to pick up the pieces after the police are called. And that police officer has to do that. So it says, have we, with all of the mistrust in law enforcement over the last couple of years, and the loss of officers that we're seeing, the mass exodus we're seeing in police officers taking early retirements or jumping out the moment they hit the years they need, we're doing something wrong, and we're also, I think, experiencing some of the rewards of treating law enforcement so poorly in the last couple of years.
These two officers are now former officers. That's what the St. Louis Police Department has said. How likely could it be when you watch something like this that they could be charged criminally for leaving the scene of someone who potentially, we don't know, they could have survived had those minutes that they walked away actually been rendering aid?
I don't know Missouri law. I went online and tried to look at the criminal code a little bit, thinking there's got to be something that these officers can be held accountable for. I mean, we see officers who are in the heat of a battle and they fire their weapon, and DAs are, in my opinion, in many cases, inappropriately charging the officer with manslaughter or something else. Unless you've been in the heat of battle, you don't understand how quickly you have to revert to training and reaction. But these guys were making conscious decisions to walk away. It's so frustrating because on the traffic side of the law books, they have failure to render aid. If you cause an accident and you walk away leaving someone injured, I mean, you could go to prison for something like that in many states, and I believe in Missouri. But I don't think there's anything that's going to tie these guys back to a criminal charge. Now, that doesn't mean that civilly there might not be some things. And oftentimes we're finding civil remedies hit a whole lot harder. But they're not really interested in these two officers who now don't have a job. They'll be interested in going after the city. And frankly, I don't know at what point it's the city's responsibility, because we saw a great example of a whole batch of police officers that are saying something's wrong with those two guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something that stuck out to me too was as they're approaching the area where they believe this body may be, one of the officers says to the other, "Are you rolling?" So there was they continued to say and do what they did, knowing that the body camera was going to be rolling. What did you make of that part?
Yeah, well, number one, police officers all know that they have a body cam rolling, and they should be rolling every time they get out of their car and start walking up on a scene. That has been really a blessing to law enforcement, because it's kind of been that check and balance that says, make sure you're doing customer service and that you're doing things right. In the same light, it really protects the citizens as we're seeing in a situation like this, because sometimes it doesn't matter how much you know. I mean, I watch inmates in prison who walk right up to the same phone in the correctional institution that has a placard on the wall that says, "Hey, your phone call is being recorded," and they get on and say things that later incriminate them and cause problems for them. So I suspect that the officers just assumed, "Hey, there's so much video imagery coming in from body cams that this thing is just never going to catch the attention of anyone," or they flat out just didn't care, as their attitude seems to represent, that it was just all about them and not about the job they were that they swore to do.
You talk to a lot of police officers. You yourself have worked in law enforcement. What is the opinion on body camera? Because in one camp, I would think that there are those that, I mean, how many of us would like a camera on us at work every single day, watching what we do at every single moment? But then at the same time, there is that ability to see when something goes one way, it is the way that you're detailing it. If there was to be a question about something you did.
Yeah, I think, I feel like I'm pretty lucky because I got to see the evolution of body cameras coming into law enforcement before I retired. So I got to see the resistance the police officers felt. And I'll tell you, there were certainly times in my career that I'm glad that there wasn't a body camera on me, where I may have said something that later I felt a little embarrassed about or felt frustration and expressed it. And we went through a period of time where there was distrust about police cars being tracked with vehicle location data and other things. And the police officers in the early days, I guess they wrapped a little tinfoil around their head to try to prevent somebody from knowing where they were. But they eventually recognized that there's an absolute value in having body camera footage, because it's vindicated more law enforcement actions than it's created challenges like we're seeing today. So police officers, again, and I'm really putting a distinction between the good cops and the bad cops. The good cops don't mind body cam. They know that it's helping them. There are times when all of us probably say something. You and I probably will say something, even in this interview, that we think, "Oh man, I wish I could have edited that out or tweaked that a little bit." But the difference is when you have a really bad personality, or you make a really bad criminal decision and it's captured on body camera, it should be used against you.
Because Ty Warren, that officer, we were able to get his body camera, but reportedly Frazier, his was not running at the time. Is there a repercussion typically when an officer does not have their body camera running? Is there a law that the body camera has to continue to be running?
We need a body camera expert rather than me. At one point, I thought body cameras automatically turned on when the officer was exiting the vehicle or once a call came in. Then I have heard that they have the ability to turn them on and off, and that through training, they're told every time you get out of the vehicle and you're having a contact that you're turning that thing on. So I think it would boil down more to department policy, what's automated versus what is allowed to go on and off. And the thing that becomes kind of interesting to me in this particular case is it almost appears that Frazier, based on some of the comments that were made, is probably a senior officer in that police car, and it may have just had a level of arrogance that he didn't need to follow the rules. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think another part of the dynamic of these two officers, and you talk about the good cops and the bad cops, is I heard on one of the body cameras from one of the other officers on scene was saying about Officer Warren that he has this reputation, sarcastically saying, to disappear at times, where he's suddenly at a scene and then he's not. What does that tell you about the dynamic of the St. Louis of this group, and kind of recognizing which officers, the reputations they have at a scene like this?
Well, welcome to police work. I mean, and probably welcome to your career in journalism. You have some people who dig in and take their job seriously. You have others who might vacillate a little based on maybe some pressures they're feeling at home or some other things that I really got to get back because I want to get to my son's baseball game or something like that. And then you have those who we used to say are the people that either are milking calls, making it last a long time so they don't have to do some of the uglier calls, or they're looking for ways to get out of handling calls. And I guess that's just welcome to human nature and welcome to every job on the planet. There are always those who have a ethical, high level approach to their job. And then there are others who are slackers.
Yeah, we've all seen it, and no matter the line of work, this is certainly a challenging story, but we appreciate your insight. Mike King, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris.
As far as where those two officers are today, all we know at this point is that the St. Louis Police Department says they are no longer employed with them. What do you think of this body camera? Let us know in the comments section. For Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.